The false king was in the middle of pronouncing her sentence when she reached out and took the glamour off him. Not dramatically, the specific quiet gesture of someone who had been seeing through the glamour for 6 months, and who had simply, in the particular moment when the condemnation was being delivered and the full court was assembled and every relevant person was present, decided that the seeing was no longer something she was going to keep to herself. She reached out with the gift's active expression. The glamour came off the way glamours came off when someone who could actually strip them did it properly, completely, immediately, and with the particular cascading quality of a full active veil sight expression flooding the environment with the specific clarity that her gift produced at its operational depth. The man on the throne was not King Soren. The court's silence had the specific quality of 60 people simultaneously receiving information that restructured everything they had understood about the past 4 months. The cascade continued, every glamour in the court chamber stripped simultaneously, the particular secondary effect of the full expression. 2 advisors' true faces. A diplomatic document's concealed text. The concealment spell on the eastern wall. Behind the concealment spell's dissolution, there was a door. Behind the door was a staircase going down. At the staircase's bottom was the real King Soren, who had been there for 4 months. The false king looked at his own hands, the specific quality of someone experiencing the particular horror of existing without their concealment for the first time. He collapsed. The court turned to her. 2 years ago, she had first reported the advisor's glamours and been told she was imagining things. Which country are you listening from right now? Please drop it in the comments below. I would love to know how far this story reaches. The lower administrative function's specific quality was the particular invisibility of work that was necessary and unremarkable, the specific daily practice of processing, filing, cross-referencing, and organizing the documentation flows that kept the court's governance machinery running at the particular efficiency that governance machinery required when it was well maintained and produced noticeable friction when it was not. Mira had been in the lower administrative function for 2 years. She had arrived through the standard placement pathway, the particular assessment process that matched available individuals to available administrative functions based on the specific combination of skill profile and institutional need. Her assessment had identified strong organizational capacity, excellent pattern recognition, and the particular detailed attention to documentary inconsistency that archival work required. She had been placed in the lower administrative function and had been quietly excellent at it for 2 years. She had also been submitting formal concern notifications at a rate of approximately 1 per month for the same 2 years. The formal concern notification system was the specific administrative channel through which any court member could raise a concern about governance matters, the particular institutional mechanism of a court that understood that information could arrive from unexpected directions and that needed a formal routing for that information. The concern notifications were supposed to be reviewed by the appropriate function and addressed or dismissed with a formal written response explaining the basis for the determination. Myra's concern notifications had all been addressed with the same formal written response. The response template, she had identified it as a template by the 4th notification, when she had recognized the specific identical language of the first 3 responses appearing in the 4th, said that the concern had been reviewed by the court's medical function and found to be consistent with glamour sensitivity delusion, a documented minor condition in which individuals with elevated magical frequency sensitivity produced false perceptions of glamour where no glamour was present. The response noted that this condition had been formally identified in her intake assessment and that her ongoing submission of glamour-related concerns was being monitored as part of the standard management protocol for the condition. She had submitted 23 concern notifications in 2 years. 23 identical responses. The gift's passive level had been running continuously across all 23 months. The court chamber's specific daily population of glamour wearers, the 2 senior advisors whose faces were not their faces, the minor cosmetic glamours of 3 court members who used glamour work for the particular social presentation reasons that minor glamour use was common for in courts. The occasional visiting dignitary whose diplomatic glamour was the specific standard presentation tool of a court that wanted its representatives to project particular qualities, had all been continuously visible to her as both their glamour presentation and their true presentation simultaneously. She had been doing the administrative work while seeing 2 layers of everyone around her for 2 years. The specific concern submission that the faction had finally noticed, the one that had produced the treason charge, had been the concern she had submitted 6 months before the coup's execution date. That concern had named the 2 senior advisors specifically, had described their glamours in precise detail, had documented the specific differences between their glamour presentation and their true presentation, and had noted the particular quality of their glamour work that distinguished it from the ordinary minor glamour of social presentation, the specific professional sophistication of a glamour designed to sustain sustained scrutiny, rather than the casual cosmetic use that the other court members' glamours were. The concern had named them as the specific persons most likely to be the source of the security. Concern she had been documenting across the preceding 11 months of concern notifications. The concern had been filed, routed through the medical function, and returned with the standard template response. The 2 senior advisors had seen the routing record. They had seen their names in the concern notification. They had seen that the concern had been successfully routed through the medical dismissal framework. They had proceeded with the coup's execution. The treason charge had arrived at her quarters on the 40th day after the impostor's installation on the throne. The specific timing of the moment when the faction had assessed that her continued presence in the administrative function was the particular governance risk of someone who could perceive what needed to remain imperceptible, and who had a 2-year formal record of attempting to report what she perceived, and who the medical dismissal framework was no longer providing adequate cover for given the specific scale of the deception now in place. She had read the treason charge and had thought, yes, she had thought, this is the specific outcome of a framework that successfully suppresses the report until the suppression itself becomes the threat. She had thought, the court session will be the specific context I have been waiting for. She had thought, 60 people in one room is the particular scale at which a full active expression makes the most difference. She had gone to the court session. The gift had been present from childhood in the specific way of something that had always been true, and that had required the particular patient experience of growing up to understand that what was true for her was not what was true for everyone. She had been approximately 7 years old when she had understood that other people did not see both layers. The understanding had arrived through the specific mechanism of social error, the particular childhood experience of saying something about the world that everyone around you treats as incorrect. which produces the special quality of confusion that arrives when the thing you said is something you experienced directly, and the people telling you it is incorrect are people whose experiences you otherwise trust. She had said to a market merchant that the woman at the next stall was wearing a glamour on her face, had described it in the specific detail of a 7-year-old describing something she was simply observing, with the particular guileless precision of a child who had not yet learned that this observation required management. The merchant had told her mother. Her mother had told her, with the specific caring quality of a parent managing a child's unusual social behavior, that she did not see glamours because ordinary people did not see glamours, and that when she said she saw things other people did not see, it made people uncomfortable. She had said, "But I do see them." Her mother had said, "I know you think you do." She had learned to stop saying so. The gift's passive level was the specific continuous operation she had been managing since childhood, with the particular practiced efficiency of someone who had been maintaining a private perceptual reality alongside the public one for 23 years. She saw the glamour and the truth simultaneously, the specific dual-layer perception that the gift produced at all times. The particular quality of always knowing that what she was seeing was not necessarily what everyone else was seeing. The active level she had not known existed until the court confrontation. She had understood the gift as purely receptive, the specific passive perception of glamours that she could not affect, that she could only observe and report and have dismissed. She had not known, until the moment she reached out in the court chamber with the specific intentional quality of someone who had decided that observation was no longer sufficient, that the gift had an expression beyond perception. The active stripping was the particular operational depth she had not previously accessed. She understood it afterward, in the specific reflective clarity of someone who had just experienced the full scope of something they had previously only used partially. The gift was not just perception. The gift was clarity, the specific complete capacity to see through deception and, at its full operational depth, to extend that clarity to others. The active stripping worked by essentially externalizing the gift's perception, projecting the clarity it produced internally outward into the shared perceptual space of the environment, making what she saw visible to everyone present. The cascade had been the specific, unexpected secondary effect of the active stripping at full depth. She had intended to strip the false king's glamour. The active expression at full depth had stripped every glamour in the court chamber. The particular cascade of a gift operating at its maximum output for the first time after 30 years of continuous passive accumulation. The specific release of 30 years of passive perception through a single active expression, producing an effect significantly larger than a targeted stripping would have produced. She had not known the cascade was coming. She had not known the concealment spell on the eastern wall was there, had not perceived it because concealment spells of that sophistication were on the outer edge of the gift's passive perception range. The particular borderline case of a magical working that was not a glamour in the strict sense, but that shared enough structural similarity with glamour work for the gift's active cascade to catch it. The cascade had stripped the concealment spell. The door behind the eastern wall had become visible. The door had opened under the cascade's effect. Concealment spells that the cascade dissolved did not simply become visible, they also dissolved their functional component, which in the concealment spell's case included the specific lock mechanism that the spell had been maintaining. Soren had walked out. She had been on her knees from the active expression's depletion when he emerged from the staircase. She had thought, I did not plan the concealment spell. She had thought, the gift found it anyway. She had thought, yes. The concern notification's formal language had been the specific, careful language of someone who had learned. Across 22 previous submissions that had all been returned with the same template response. That the concern notification's credibility was entirely dependent on the precision of its description. She had written the 23rd concern with the particular documentary precision of an experienced administrative professional who understood that the specific quality of a formal document determined how it was received. The more precise the description, the harder it was to dismiss as the particular vague impressionism of someone experiencing a perceptual delusion. She had described the advisor's glamours in exact detail. The first advisor, Senior Advisor Lord Cavan, had the specific glamour presentation of a man in his mid-50s with the particular features of the southern coastal bloodlines. The specific combination of coloring and bone structure that the court had always known him to present. Beneath the glamour, he was a man in his early 40s with the specific physical characteristics she described in the concern notification's second paragraph. Different coloring, different bone structure. The particular quality of someone who was not from the southern coastal bloodlines at all. The second advisor, Senior Advisor Lord Devon, had the specific glamour presentation of a man in his late 40s with a particular build and the specific neutral coloring that had always made him an aesthetically unremarkable presence in the court. Beneath the glamour, he was younger, with the specific physical characteristics that she described in the concern notification's third paragraph, and with the particular quality of a glamour that was professionally constructed in a way that the ordinary cosmetic glamour user's work was not. The specific engineering of a long-duration sustained scrutiny glamour, rather than the casual daily use glamour that most social glamour practitioners employed. She had noted in the concern notification's fourth paragraph that the quality of their glamour work was professional in the specific sense of having been constructed by a practitioner with formal glamour craft training rather than the self-taught quality of ordinary social glamour use. She had noted that professional quality sustained glamours of the specific sophistication she was describing were typically employed in the particular governance and intelligence contexts where identity concealment was the specific operational requirement. She had concluded the concern notification with the specific formal language of an administrative professional making a security referral. She was requesting that the security function conduct an independent assessment of the two advisors' identities through the particular non-visual verification methods that the security function's protocols specified for identity confirmation, which did not depend on visual presentation and therefore would not be affected by any glamour work. The concern notification had been routed to the medical function. The medical function had returned the standard template response. The two advisors had continued their planning. She had held this for 6 months, the specific quality of someone who has reported a threat clearly and precisely, and been told that the report is a symptom rather than intelligence, and who must then decide what to do with the knowledge that the report's routing has effectively protected the threat. She had thought about the options. She had thought, I cannot change the routing framework from within the lower administrative function. She had thought, I cannot go around the routing framework without the particular authority that the lower administrative function does not carry. She had thought, I can wait for the specific moment when the full court is assembled and I am in the room with the gift's full operational capacity and the specific target of the largest deception. She had waited. The treason charge had arrived and had given her exactly the specific moment she had been waiting for. She had thought, reading the treason charge, "They are giving me the court session." She had thought, "They are giving me 60 people in one room." She had thought, "They do not understand what the gift can do at full operational depth because I did not understand it either until I used it." She had gone to the court session. The treason charge had been read in the specific formal language of a governance proceeding designed to produce an irreversible outcome, the particular organized quality of an accusation that had been constructed by people who understood formal governance process and who had used their understanding to build an accusation that the standard administrative response framework could not easily challenge. The false king had been on the throne with the specific composed quality of someone who had been performing the role for 4 months and who had developed the particular practice fluency of an imposter who had been preparing for this role for significantly longer than 4 months. She had been standing at the witness position, the specific location in the court chamber where the accused stood for the formal proceeding, and she had been listening to the charge being read while simultaneously receiving the gift's continuous passive perception of every glamour in the room. The false king's glamour had the specific quality she had been reading for 4 months of his presence. The particular professional construction of a long-duration sustained scrutiny glamour. The specific engineering of someone who had been preparing to wear this face in this court for an extended period and who had invested in the particular quality of glamour work that would withstand the specific scrutiny a king received daily. She had been reading the glamour every day for 4 months. She had been filing the concern notifications. They had all been returned with the standard template response. The false king had concluded the charge's formal reading and had said, "The determination of the court is that the accused, having committed the specific acts of treason specified in the formal charge, she had stopped listening to the specific words. She had been thinking about the particular moment and the particular geometry of 60 people in a room and the gift's full operational capacity. She had thought, now. She had reached out. The gift's active expression at full depth was not a gesture she had ever made before. She did not know what the making of it would feel like. What it felt like was the specific release of 30 years of continuous passive accumulation. Through a single intentional opening, the particular quality of something that had been running at low pressure for an entire lifetime, suddenly being allowed to run at full pressure. The false king's glamour came off. The cascade followed. The court's 60 members received the clarity simultaneously, the specific perceptual shift of a group of people who had been seeing one layer suddenly being shown both layers. The particular quality of the court chamber becoming, for everyone present, what it had always looked like to her. The false king's true face. Lord Caven's true face. Lord Devon's true face. The diplomatic document on the session table with its concealed secondary text suddenly legible. The eastern wall's concealment spell dissolving with the cascade's particular secondary effect. The specific cascading quality of a full veil sight active expression catching the concealment spell on its outer operational edge and dissolving it alongside the targeted glamours. The door in the eastern wall becoming visible. The lock dissolving. The false king had looked at his own hands in the specific quality of someone experiencing the particular horror of being without their concealment for the first time in 4 months. He had looked at the 60 court members looking at him. He had made a sound that was not formed language. He had collapsed. The court had been silent. She had been on her knees. The door in the eastern wall had opened. Soren had emerged from the staircase with the particular quality of someone who had been in a confined space for 4 months and who was receiving sensory information at a scale that 4 months of confinement had not been providing. The court's reception of his emergence had the specific quality of 60 people simultaneously, encountering 2 impossible things: the false king's collapse and the real king's appearance, and organizing their available governance response around the particular urgency that the overlap of the 2 produced. The court's senior members, the 3 who had known Soren the longest, who had the specific accumulated knowledge of his physical presence across years of close governance relationship, had moved immediately. The particular organized urgency of people who were receiving the accurate information of their real king's presence and who were responding with the specific governance instinct of people who understood exactly what the past 4 months had been. The security function had been activated within the first 5 minutes. The false king, unconscious on the throne room floor, had been secured with the specific organized efficiency of a security function that had protocols for the detention of governance threats. Lord Caven and Lord Devon, their true faces visible to the entire court, had the particular quality of people who understood that their position was irretrievably compromised and who were managing the specific immediate question of what their available options were. The security function had reached them before they had resolved the question. The diplomatic document's concealed text was being examined by 2 court members who had happened to be standing closest to the session table when the cascade had made the text visible. The specific, spontaneous examination of people encountering information they had not known was there. Mira had been on her knees. The depletion had the particular quality she had prepared for. The specific profound exhaustion of a gift that had been running at continuous passive level for 30 years, suddenly operating at full active expression for the duration of the cascade. She was not injured. She was the specific quality of empty that produced the particular inability to stand without assistance. A court member she did not know had put a hand under her elbow. She had said, "Thank you." He had said, "What did you just do?" She had said, "I stripped the glamours." She had said it with the specific plain quality of accurate information delivered without management. She had said, "The gift's active expression at full depth produces a cascade. It strips every glamour in the environment simultaneously rather than the single targeted stripping I had intended." He had said, "You intended to strip the king's glamour." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "And the concealment spell." She had said, "I did not know the concealment spell was there." She had said, "The cascade caught it at the outer edge of the expression's operational range." He had looked at the eastern wall's now visible door. He had said, "The king was behind that wall." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "For how long?" She had said, "For months." He had said nothing for a moment. He had said, "And you knew?" She had said, "I knew the specific imposter had been wearing the false king's glamour since the 23rd day of the imposter's installation." She had said, "I had been filing concern notifications." She had said, "They were returned as standard medical classification." He had said, "The glamour sensitivity delusion classification." She had said, "Yes." Soren had crossed the court chamber. He had crossed the court chamber with the particular quality of someone who had spent 4 months in a confined space, and who was now moving through a large room with the specific deliberate quality of someone re-establishing their physical presence in an environment they had been removed from. He had stopped in front of her. She had been assisted to standing by the court member who had helped her, the particular upright quality of someone who was maintaining standing through conscious effort rather than ordinary functioning, the specific quality of significant depletion that the active expression had produced. He had looked at her. He had said, "You are the one who stripped the glamour." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "And the cascade that freed the concealment spell." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The cascade was the secondary effect of the active expression at full depth." She had said, "I did not know the concealment spell was there." She had said, "The cascade found it." He had said, "The cascade found it." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The gift's full active expression strips every glamour and glamour-adjacent magical working in the environment simultaneously." Welcome back to the Whispers of Alpha King channel. Today we're going to present a new story that I believe you'll be very curious about and interested in because of its incredibly captivating content. Now let's explore it together until the end of the video. This is a fictional story compiled from various sources, supported by AI. And the content is purely for entertainment and educational purposes. She had said, "The concealment spell was at the outer edge of the operational range." He had been quiet for a moment. He had looked at the eastern wall's visible door. He had said, "For months." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "And you knew I was there." She had said, "No." She had said, "I knew the concealment spell was on the eastern wall." She had said, "The passive level reads concealment spells at its outer range as the specific quality of a glamour-adjacent working, the particular wrongness of a space that has something hidden in it by magical means." She had said, "I did not know what was behind the spell." She had said, "I knew something was behind it." He had said, "You had been filing concern notifications about the false king and the advisors." She had said, "Yes." She had said, 23 notifications over 20 months. He had said, 23. She had said, "Yes." He had said, "They were returned with the standard template response." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The glamour sensitivity delusion classification." She had said, "All 23. He had been very still for a moment. He had said, "The classification is in your administrative file." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "It was in my intake assessment." She had said, "It has been the specific routing mechanism for every concern notification I submitted." He had said, "I want to see the file." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The file will also contain the 23rd notification." She had said, "The specific notification that named Lord Caven and Lord Devon by name and described their glamours in precise detail, and requested that the security function conduct non-visual identity verification." He had said, "The 23rd notification." She had said 6 months ago. He had said nothing for a long time. He had said, "I need to speak with you privately." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "I need to sit down first." He had said, "Yes." He had said it with the specific quality of someone who had received a significant amount of information in a short period and who was organizing the particular governance response to the immediate situation alongside the specific personal response to the particular accumulation of what the situation contained. He had said, "We will speak when you have recovered." She had said, "Yes." She had thought, he said we. She had thought, I am noting that. The file had been on his governance desk at the end of the second day. He had read it in the specific focused attention of someone who understood that they were reading a document whose contents were going to require the particular full accurate reception that significant information deserved, not the particular skimming quality of someone managing a large document load. The specific complete attention of someone who understood that every page of this file was directly relevant to the most significant governance failure of his reign. The intake assessment's glamour sensitivity delusion classification had been the first page. It had been a standard assessment, the particular clinical language of a court medical function, using an established diagnostic framework to classify an identified sensitivity pattern. He had read the specific clinical language with the particular quality of someone who was reading it, knowing what the classification had subsequently been used to do, and finding the gap between the assessment's careful clinical framing and the specific operational consequence of the classification significant and disturbing. The 23 concern notifications and their responses had been the file's main body. He had read all 23. He had read the first one, the particular careful language of a lower administrative practitioner documenting a first concern about a glamour on a court member she had identified, the specific precision of the description, the particular formal language of someone who was working within the system's available channels to report something they had perceived. He had read the template response. He had read the second, the third, the specific progressive accumulation of a practitioner becoming more precise in her documentation. As the dismissals continued, the particular systematic response of someone who had concluded that the dismissals were occurring because her descriptions were not specific enough, and who was therefore making the descriptions more specific. By the 11th notification, the descriptions had the particular documentary precision of a professional intelligence report. By the 16th, the notifications had been explicitly requesting the security functions' involvement rather than simply reporting the perception. The 23rd notification had named Caven and Devon specifically, had described their glamours in exact technical detail, and had requested non-visual identity verification through the security function's specific protocols. He had turned to the 23rd notification's routing record. His signature was on the routing confirmation. Not on the response, on the routing confirmation. The specific administrative document that confirmed the notification had been received by his office and had been routed to the appropriate function for review. His signature confirmed that the routing had been authorized. He had not read the notification before routing it. He had routed it through his standard administrative protocol, which was the particular efficient process of receiving a lower administrative concern and routing it to the function specified by the notification's classification category, which was the medical function. Because the classification category in her file was glamour sensitivity delusion, he had routed the specific notification that named the coup's architects to the medical function, that had been dismissing her reports for 20 months. He had been imprisoned 1 month later. He had read his own signature 3 times. He had thought, I had the specific information that would have prevented this, and I routed it to the function that was designed to dismiss it without reading it. He had thought, the routing protocol was the particular governance convenience that eliminated the need to engage with the specific content of classified concerns. He had thought, the content of this specific concern was the specific most important intelligence my court had received in 2 years. He had come to her recovery room. She was in the recovery room on the 3rd morning when he came. The depletion's recovery was proceeding at the particular pace that a 30-year passive gifts. First full active expression required the specific gradual restoration of a system that had been expended at a scale it had not previously experienced. She was functional. The particular quality of someone at approximately 65% of their ordinary reserve, able to engage fully cognitively and communicatively, managing the specific physical cost of a gift in recovery with the practiced discipline of someone who had been managing the gift's continuous passive cost for 30 years. He came in with the specific quality of someone who had spent 2 days with the file and who had arrived at the third morning with the particular organized accumulation of questions that 2 days of reading had produced. He sat. He said, "I want to hear the full account of what the passive level has been perceiving across 2 years." She said, "Yes." She told him. She told him about the 2 advisors, the specific technical description of their glamours that she had documented in the concern notifications, the particular professional quality of Caven's sustained scrutiny glamour, the specific details of Devon's younger true presentation versus the older false presentation. She told him about the timeline, when she had first perceived their glamours, the specific progressive clarity of the passive levels reading as she had spent more time in their vicinity. She told him about the 3 court members whose minor cosmetic glamours she had also been perceiving, not the security concern of the advisors, the particular ordinary social glamour use that the court's cosmetic glamour practitioners employed. She named them. He said, "I recognize all 3. He said, "They are known to use cosmetic glamour work." She said, "Yes." She said, "Their glamours are consistent with social presentation use rather than identity concealment." He said, "The distinction." She said, "Yes." She said, "The gift's passive level reads the purpose architecture of a glamour alongside its appearance." She said, "A social presentation glamour has the specific construction quality of something that is intended to be temporary and self-maintained." She said, "An identity concealment glamour has the particular engineering quality of something that has been built for sustained use, and that has the specific structural reinforcement that long-duration operation requires." He said, "You can tell the purpose from the construction." She said, "Yes." She said, "The advisor's glamours were specifically built for long-duration identity concealment." She said, "The quality of the engineering was professional, the particular sophistication of a glamourcraft practitioner with formal training." He said, "And the diplomatic document?" She said, "Yes." She said, "The concealed secondary text had been present since the document's arrival in the court's archives 7 months ago." She said, "The text beneath the visible surface was a specific communication layer, the particular secondary document encoding that the diplomatic intelligence function uses for embedded communications." He said, "What does the secondary text say?" She said, "I was not able to read it during the cascade." She said, "The cascade revealed its presence, but I was not in a position to read the content during the active expression's peak." She said, "The document has been secured by the intelligence function." He said, "Yes." He said, "The intelligence function confirmed the secondary text's content this morning." He said, "I will share the content with you." She had said, "Good." He had said, "Mira." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "The 23rd notification." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "I routed it without reading it." She had said, "Yes." He had said, The routing protocol for classified concerns routes automatically to the function specified by the concerns category, which is determined by the file's existing classification. She had said, yes. She had said, the glamour sensitivity delusion classification produced the automatic routing to the medical function. She had said, the routing protocol had no mechanism for the concern's specific content to influence the routing destination. He had said, the protocol assumes the classification is accurate. She had said, yes. She had said, the protocol has no provision for the scenario in which the classification is itself the specific mechanism that is suppressing accurate reporting. He had said, yes. He had been quiet for a moment. He had said, the specific governance failure is the classification framework combined with the routing protocol combined with my non-review of the routed content. She had said, yes. She had said, all three together. The faction's remaining members had been identified by the security function that afternoon. The pattern had established itself by the 5th day. He came every morning. The intelligence debrief was the stated purpose. The specific comprehensive intelligence value of 2 years of continuous passive perception in a court that had been hosting a coup's preparation. The particular accumulated picture of who had been wearing what glamour, what documents had concealed secondary content, what spaces had been altered by glamour-adjacent magical workings that the gift's passive level had been reading and filing in her perceptual memory across 24 months of daily administrative presence. The debrief was genuine and significant. The intelligence function's senior analyst had been present for the first 3 sessions, receiving the specific organized account with the particular professional attention of someone who understood they were receiving the most comprehensive retrospective intelligence picture of a court compromise that the function had ever received from a single source. By the 5th session, the analyst had enough to continue the reconstruction independently, and Soren had continued coming. Not for the intelligence debrief. She had noted the distinction on the 5th day and had filed it. In the particular careful way she noted significant things. He was coming because the conversations had the specific quality, that genuine daily presence, produced in 2 people who had something real between them to think about and who had been thinking about it alongside each other. He had asked on the 6th day, what does the passive level feel like? She had said, like seeing 2 pictures in the same frame. She had said, the glamour layer and the truth layer, simultaneously, with the particular quality of knowing which one you are seeing in each moment, the way you know which layer of a 2-layer painting is the underpainting and which is the surface. She had said, after 30 years the dual reception is as ordinary as breathing. She had said, the particular extraordinary quality of the passive level is not the dual reception itself. It is the specific knowledge that the 2 layers do not always match, which means the knowledge that what you are seeing is not always what is actually there. He had said, that must produce a specific quality of distrust. She had said, yes. She had said, the gift produces the particular challenge of never being able to take a face entirely at face value. She had said, the 23 months in the court were the specific context of working closely with people I knew might not be who they appeared to be, and not being able to communicate what I knew without the communication being classified as pathology. He had said, yes. He had said it with the particular weight of someone who was receiving the specific individual experience of what the classification had cost the person it had been applied to. The gift's demonstration on the 7th day had been the particular small moderate scale demonstration she conducted in the recovery room's ambient environment. The specific visible expression of the passive level's continuous operation made external. She had pointed to 3 objects in the room that had glamour-adjacent magical workings on them. The particular minor workings that the palace's ambient magical infrastructure used for household function, and had described the working beneath the surface object in the specific precise detail that distinguished genuine perception from confabulation. He had verified all 3 through the magical infrastructure's maintenance records. All 3 had been accurate. He had looked at her for a long moment after the verification. He had said, "The intake assessment classification." She had said, "Yes." He had said, "The assessment classified your perception as delusion." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The assessment used a documented pattern-matching framework for the glamour sensitivity delusion condition and found that my reported experiences fit the documented pattern." He had said, "And the documented pattern?" She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The glamour sensitivity delusion condition is characterized by the specific experience of perceiving glamours where no glamour is present." She had said, "The assessment framework's limitation is that it cannot independently verify whether the perceived glamours are present or not." He had said, "So the assessment classified you as delusional because the assessment tool had no mechanism for distinguishing accurate glamour perception from false glamour perception." She had said, "Yes." She had said, "The assessment tool assumes glamour perception in an ordinary administrative practitioner is false because genuine glamour perception is classified as rare." She had said, "The classification's foundation is an assumption about frequency." He had said, "And if the assumption is wrong?" She had said, "The assumption produces the specific outcome it produced with me." He had said, "Yes." The faction's formal petition had arrived on the 9th day. The formal petition was 12 pages and had the particular sophisticated architecture of a document, produced by people who were working with a significantly weakened political position and who were, therefore, deploying the specific arguments that the available institutional framework supported, rather than the broader arguments that a stronger position would have permitted. The petition's 4 arguments were specifically chosen to operate within the existing institutional framework rather than to challenge it. The first argument, that the cascade event in the court chamber could not be attributed to a specific individual gift expression with sufficient certainty for governance action, as the specific causal mechanism of a mass simultaneous glamour stripping was not documented in the existing gift registry, and its attribution to the accused individual gift capacity was speculative rather than verified. The second argument, that the glamour sensitivity delusion classification in the accused formal medical file constituted a formal medical finding that had governance standing, and that could not be superseded by the court's informal reception of a single event without the specific formal medical review process that the governance medical framework required. The third argument, that the court chamber's mass perceptual event had produced a specific disorienting effect that compromised the 60 court members' ability to accurately assess what they had witnessed, and that governance action based on witnesses whose perceptual reliability had been compromised by the event itself required the specific independent verification that the witness's own testimony could not provide. The fourth argument, that the security function's detention of Lord Cavan and Lord Devon on the basis of their true-face presentation following the court event constituted an unauthorized detention because the legal basis for detention required verified identity fraud rather than the specific appearance of a different face following a mass perceptual event of uncertain origin. She had read the petition and identified its load-bearing argument immediately. She had said, the second argument. Soren had said, yes. She had said, the classification's formal medical standing. She had said, the petition is arguing that the classification cannot be superseded without a formal medical review process, which will take time, and that during the time the review is pending, the classification's governance standing produces the specific procedural status of making my testimony and gift expression claims administratively unverifiable. He had said, yes. She had said, the formal gift evaluation. He had said, yes. He had said, I have requested the senior gift evaluator. He had said, the evaluation is tomorrow. She had said, good. She had said, the evaluation needs to produce the specific formal classification that supersedes the medical classification's governance standing before the court session. He had said, the evaluation's findings will be formally registered before the session. She had said, yes. She had said, and the cascade's causal attribution. He had said, the magical architecture function has been assessing the court chamber's residual magical environment since the event. He had said, the assessment's preliminary findings establish the specific magical signature of a veil site expression at full operational depth as the causal mechanism of the cascade. She had said, the magical signature is distinct. He had said, yes. He had said, the assessment will be complete before the session. She had said, good. He had said, Mira. She had said, yes. He had said, the petition's fourth argument, the Caven and Devon detention. She had said, yes. She had said, the petition is arguing that the detention's legal basis is insufficiently established. She had said, the counter-argument is the specific identity verification that the security function has been conducting since the detention. She had said, the verification is not based on their appearance in the court chamber. It is based on the independent biological and documentation verification that the security function's protocols specify. He had said, the verification has produced confirmed findings. She had said, yes. She had said, I assumed it had. She had said, the petition's fourth argument fails against the verification's findings. He had said, yes. He had said, the full court session is in 2 days. She had said, yes. The magical architecture function's assessment arrived that evening with the particular, comprehensive quality of a forensic magical analysis conducted by professionals who understood the governance significance of their findings. The evening before the full court session had the particular quality of a night in a palace that she was perceiving at 2 layers in every space she moved through. The passive level was running at its ordinary continuous quality, the specific dual-layer reception. That had been her perceptual reality for 30 years, and that the active expression's depletion had not diminished at the passive level. She could see every remaining glamour in the palace. There were 14, after the cascade had stripped the major deceptions. 14 minor working that the passive level cataloged with the particular automatic quality of a system that was always running. None of the 14 were the specific professional quality identity concealment glamours that Caven and Devon had been wearing. All 14 were the ordinary ambient magical workings of a palace, the particular cosmetic, functional, and aesthetic uses that minor glamour work was deployed for in a large formal residential and governance space. She was in the recovery room reviewing the session's presentation materials when Soren knocked. He came in with the particular quality of 10 days of daily presence, the specific warmth of someone who had been in this room every day for 10 days and whose presence in it had become the particular ambient quality of something that was simply the room's fact. He sat. He said, "The magical architecture assessment." She said, "Yes." She said, "The assessment confirms the veil sight gifts cascade as the causal mechanism." She said, "The specific magical signature is documented in the assessment's appendix with the particular technical detail that constitutes the formal attribution." He said, "And the gift evaluation." She said, "Yes." She said, "The formal veil sight classification has been registered with the gift registry." She said, "The registration formally supersedes the glamour sensitivity delusion classification's governance standing." He said, "Both are in the formal record." She said, "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. He said, "Mira." She said, "Yes." He said, 10 days. She said, "Yes." He said, "I have been in this room every day for 10 days. She said, "Yes." He said, "Not for the intelligence debrief alone." She said, "I know." He said, "The bond." She said, "Yes." He said, "I want to name it before the court session tomorrow." He said it with the specific directness of someone who had been thinking about how to say this for several days and who had arrived at the plain version as the most accurate. He said, naming it after the session would produce the specific appearance of a response to the session's formal outcome. He said, "The bond is not a response to the outcome." He said, "It has been present since the 7th morning." She said, "Yes." She said, "I know." She said, "I have been building the evidence base." He said, "Tell me what the evidence shows." She said, "Someone who read the file and read his own signature and came to the recovery room the following morning." She said, "Someone who has been coming every day for 10 days with the specific quality of wanting to understand rather than wanting to manage the understanding." She said, "And someone who is naming the bond the evening before the court session rather than the morning after." He said, "Yes." She said, "The bond is present." She said, "I have known it since the 6th day." She said, "I was building the evidence with the particular careful patience of someone who understands that the most significant assessments require the most careful time." He said, "And the evidence is sufficient." She said, "Yes." She looked at the recovery room around her, the specific space where 10 days of genuine daily presence had been accumulated, the particular quality of a place that had become the room where significant things were said rather than managed. She thought, tomorrow. She thought, yes. The full court session had 58 members, the 60 minus the false king, who was in formal detention, and Lord Caven, who was also in formal detention, plus 2 members who had been added through the emergency replacement protocol for detained members. She stood at the witness position with the gift evaluation's formal classification, the magical architecture assessment, the 23 concern notifications and their responses, the Cascade's formal account, and the security function's identity verification findings for the detained advisors. She said, "I will begin with a demonstration of the passive levels operation." She said, "There are 14 glamour-adjacent magical workings currently present in this court chamber." She said, "I will identify 4 of them specifically, describe what each one is covering." and allow the court to verify the description against the magical infrastructure's maintenance records. She identified 4. She described each one with the specific precise language of the passive level's accurate reading, the particular functional magical working beneath each one, the glamour or glamour adjacent working on its surface, the specific purpose architecture that the gift's passive level read as functional rather than concealing. The court's senior administrator verified all 4 against the maintenance records in the specific time the session's structure allocated for the verification. All 4 had been accurate. She said, "The petition argues that the cascade's causal attribution is speculative." She said, "The magical architecture assessment, which is in the formal record, establishes the veil site gift's active expression as the specific causal mechanism through the particular magical signature analysis that the assessment documents." She said, "The petition's first argument is addressed." She said, "The petition argues that the glamour sensitivity delusion classification has formal medical standing that cannot be superseded without formal medical review." She said, "The gift evaluation's formal veil site classification, registered with the gift registry and in the formal record, supersedes the medical classification's governance, standing through the specific formal pathway that the gift registry's procedures establish for the resolution of classification conflicts." She said, "The petition's second argument is addressed." She said, "The petition argues that the court's witnesses' perceptual reliability was compromised by the cascade's disorienting effect." She said, "The cascade stripped glamours from the environment." She said, "It did not alter the witness's perception of the stripped reality. It revealed the reality that had previously been concealed." She said, "The witness's testimony about what they saw after the cascade is testimony about what was actually present, not about a distorted perception." She said, "The petition's third argument fails on its foundational premise." She said, "The petition argues that the detention lacks verified legal basis." She said, "The security function's independent biological and documentary verification findings are in the formal record." She said, "The detention's legal basis is established." She said, "The petition's fourth argument is addressed." She looked at Soren. He said, "The king will respond." Soren stood at the governance position. He said, 2 years ago, an administrative practitioner in this court's lower function submitted a formal concern notification identifying 2 senior advisors as wearing professional identity concealment glamours. He said, "The concern notification named specific individuals, described the glamours in technical detail, and requested security function investigation through non-visual verification protocols." He said, "The concern notification was routed to the medical function." He said, "It was routed to the medical function because the submitting practitioner's administrative file contained a classification of glamour sensitivity delusion, and the court's concern notification routing protocol automatically directed glamour-related concerns from classified practitioners to the medical function for review rather than to the security or intelligence function." He said, "My signature is on the routing confirmation for the 23rd notification, the specific notification that named Lord Caven and Lord Devon as the individuals wearing the identity concealment glamours." He said, "I did not read the notification before routing it." He said, "I routed it through the standard protocol because the classification in her file determined the routing category, and I did not have a process for reviewing the notification's specific content before executing the routing." He said, The notification was returned to her with the standard medical dismissal template. He said, "1 month later, I was imprisoned below the throne room." He said, 4 months after that, a lower administrative practitioner was dragged before this court on a treason charge fabricated by the same advisors whose glamour she had been reporting for 20 months. He said, "The court session produced by the treason charge was the specific context in which she activated the gift's full operational depth, the first time she had used the active expression, and stripped every glamour in this chamber simultaneously." He said, Lord Cavan and Lord Devon's identities were confirmed as enemy operatives through the security function's verification. He said, "The false king's identity has been verified as an enemy operative trained for the specific role over an extended preparation period." He said, "The diplomatic document's concealed secondary text has been confirmed as an embedded intelligence communication of significant governance relevance." He said, "All of these findings have been produced by the specific event that the treason charge created." He said, "The specific governance failures that allowed this situation are 3. The intake assessment's classification framework, the routing protocol's automatic override of notification content, and my non-review of routed content." He said, "All 3 are mine to account for." He said, "Mira will present her formal requirements to the court." She stepped forward. She presented 3 requirements. The Vale Site Intelligence Office, a formal governance body with the specific mandate of receiving, processing, and acting on glamour perception reports and related illusion-breaking gift intelligence through the particular institutional structure that integrated such reports into the security and intelligence functions rather than routing them through the medical classification framework. The office would maintain a classified practitioner registry for glamour perception and veil site gifts. The specific formal recognition that these gifts were intelligence-relevant capacities rather than medical conditions. The office would have the formal standing to initiate security function investigation on the basis of veil site practitioner reports without requiring independent verification prior to investigation. Initiation, the specific inversion of the current protocol's assumption that veil site perception was presumptively unreliable. She said, "The glamour sensitivity delusion classification framework assumed that veil site perception was false unless independently verified." She said, "The office's framework assumes veil site perception is accurate unless specifically disproven." She said, "The inversion is the specific institutional change that prevents the routing protocol from being used to suppress accurate intelligence reporting. The perception claim protocol, a formal governance requirement that all formal concern notifications related to glamour, illusion, or magical concealment perception be reviewed by both the medical function and the intelligence function simultaneously before classification, with the specific provision that the intelligence function's assessment could prevent medical dismissal if the intelligence assessment found the concern's specific content to be operationally plausible regardless of the submitter's classification status. The protocol would apply retroactively to all existing glamour sensitivity delusion classifications, requiring intelligence function review of the classified practitioner's historical concern. Submissions for any that contained operationally plausible content that the medical routing had prevented from reaching the appropriate function. She said, "I submitted 23 concern notifications." She said, "The 23rd named the specific 2 individuals who had been running the coup." She said, The protocol would have required the intelligence function to assess the 23rd notification's operational plausibility before the medical dismissal was finalized. She said, the intelligence function's assessment would have found the specific non-visual verification request operationally plausible. She said, the verification would have been conducted. The medical classification review, a formal independent review of all glamour sensitivity delusion classifications currently in the court's medical records, conducted by a panel including a Vail site office practitioner, the medical functions senior assessor, and an independent gift evaluator, with the specific mandate of determining whether each classification had been based on the full available evidence or on the assessment framework's foundational assumption that glamour perception in an ordinary practitioner was false. Any classification found to have been based on the assumption rather than the evidence would be formally overturned and the classified practitioner notified. She said, I do not know how many people in the court's administrative and governance functions have been classified under the glamour sensitivity delusion framework for accurately reporting what they perceived. She said, I know I am not the only one. She said, the review exists to find them. She said, these three requirements address the specific governance failures that produced the 23 months and the coup and the 4 months in the chamber below the throne room. She said, they are not conditions for my personal decisions. She said, the personal decisions are mine. The court voted. The petition's 3 remaining signatories voted against all 3 requirements. The remaining 55 members voted for all 3. She thought, 55-3. She thought, yes. The Vail Site Intelligence Office held its first formal session 26 days after the court vote. She had spent those 26 days building the office's founding framework from the specific operational knowledge of 30 years of continuous passive perception and 2 years of formal concerned submissions and the particular institutional knowledge of what the framework should have contained to make the reporting pathway functional rather than suppressive. The framework was comprehensive, the practitioner registry classification system, the formal reporting protocols that integrated Vail site intelligence into the security function's operational planning, the specific assessment methodology for distinguishing professional identity concealment glamours from cosmetic glamour use, and the particular ongoing practitioner support structure that the office provided. The perception claim protocol had been implemented within 10 days, the specific urgency of a governance reform that addressed an active suppression mechanism rather than a potential future failure. The retroactive review of existing classifications had been initiated immediately. The court's medical records contained 43 individuals currently classified under the glamour sensitivity delusion framework. The review panel had been constituted and had begun its work. The medical classification review's preliminary findings at the 26th day. 11 of the 43 classified practitioners had concerned submission histories containing operationally plausible content that the medical routing had prevented from reaching the intelligence function. Of the 11, 3 had submission histories that would have, under the new protocol's assessment criteria, triggered intelligence function investigation rather than medical dismissal. 3 people who had been telling the court true things about what they perceived and had been classified as delusional for years. She had met with each of the 3. She had said, "This is what you have been seeing." She had said, "The office exists so that what you see is received as intelligence rather than classified as pathology." Soren had been present at each of the 3 meetings. Not in the governance oversight capacity, present. The specific quality of someone who had decided that the founding of this institution required genuine engagement with the human cost of what the institution was correcting. He had read the 3 practitioners' concerned submission histories personally. He had attended the office's founding practitioner identification sessions with the particular, focused attention of someone who understood precisely why each element of what he was witnessing mattered. He had come to the working sessions. He had come every morning. She was reviewing the office's first month planning in the institutional chamber when he came in on the 26th evening. He said, "The 3 practitioners." She said, "Yes." She said, "All 3 have been formally reclassified." She said, "All 3 have been briefed on the office's registry and the specific support structure it provides." He said, "They know what they are carrying." She said, "Yes." She said, "They have known what they were carrying." She said, "Now the governance structure knows it too." He said, "Yes." He said, "Mira." She said, "Yes." He said, 26 days. She said, "Yes." The court chamber's eastern wall had the particular quality of a space that had been altered. Not structurally, the wall was the same wall, the specific stone of the palace's original construction. But the concealment spell's dissolution had produced the particular ambient quality of a space that had been a veil for 4 months and was now simply a wall with a door in it. The door had been formally integrated into the court chamber's architectural record. It opened to the staircase that descended to the specific space where Soren had been imprisoned. She came here sometimes in the evenings. Not to remember the imprisonment, to be in the particular space that the cascade had revealed. The specific location that the gift's active expression had found at the outer edge of its operational range and had liberated. There was something about standing at the place where the gift had worked at its fullest capacity that she found clarifying. Soren found her there on the 26th evening. He came through the court chamber with the particular quality of someone who had organized the evening's remaining governance function around being at a specific place at a specific time. He stood beside her at the eastern wall. He said, "The door." She said, "Yes." She said, "The wall." He said, 26 days ago the cascade found the concealment spell at the outer edge of the active expression's operational range and dissolved it. She said, "Yes." He said, "You did not know it was there." She said, "No." She said, "I knew something was there." She said, "The passive level reads concealment spells at the outer range as the specific quality of a space that has something hidden in it by magical means." She said, "I did not know what was hidden." He said, "And the gift found it anyway." She said, "Yes." He was quiet for a moment. He said, "Mira." She said, "Yes." He said, "I want to acknowledge the bond here." He said it with the specific directness she had come to recognize as his genuine mode. He said, "At this specific wall." He said, "Not because the wall requires an acknowledgement." He said, "Because this is where the gift worked at its fullest capacity, and this is where the particular chain of events that produced the past 26 days of working together began." He said, "The bond has been present since the 7th morning." He said, "I want to name it with the full history in the account, the intake assessment and the 23 notifications and the treason charge and the cascade and 26 mornings of building the office and meeting the 3 practitioners who had been classified for telling the truth." She said, "Yes." She said, 26 days of evidence, and the specific prior accumulation of the 7 days before the evidence base began. She said, someone who read the file and read his own signature, and came to the recovery room the following morning without managing the reception of what he had read. She said, someone who has been coming every morning for 26 days with the specific quality of genuine presence rather than governance presence. She said, and someone who is naming the bond at the eastern wall where the veil had been. He said, yes. She said, the bond. She said, yes. She said, in the full version, 30 years of the gift and 2 years of the classification, and the treason charge, and the cascade in 26 mornings of building what the gift required. He said, yes. The eastern wall's door had the particular quality of a door that had been hidden for 4 months, and was now simply the door it had always been, present, accessible, no longer concealed. She thought, the gift found it anyway. She thought, the gift finds things even when no one has asked it to look. She thought, yes. 2 years forward. The Veil Site Intelligence Office had 19 registered practitioners in its active network. The particular gradual accumulation of the office's proactive identification work across 2 years of systematic outreach to the governance communities where the glamour sensitivity delusion classification had historically been applied at the highest rates. Not all 19 had the full veil sight gift at the active stripping depth she carried. The gift expressed at different operational levels. For carried the passive dual-layer perception without the active stripping capacity, which produced the particular diagnostic intelligence that the office had identified as the most consistently valuable operational expression. The specific ongoing reading of glamours that a standing intelligence practitioner provided in any governance space they occupied. 9 carried the active stripping at the targeted individual level. 6 carried the full cascade-capable veil sight at various operational depths. All 19 had been classified under the glamour sensitivity delusion framework before the office's identification. All 19 had been telling the truth about what they perceived. The medical classification review had completed at the 14-month mark. Of the 43 originally classified practitioners, 29 had been formally reclassified. The reclassification had involved the specific formal notification to each practitioner, the particular acknowledgement that the classification had been wrong, that their perception had been accurate, and that the office existed to receive what they had been reporting as intelligence rather than as symptom. 29 people who had been told they were imagining things they were not imagining. The perception claim protocol had been applied 67 times in 2 years, 67 instances of glamour perception reports triggering the simultaneous medical and intelligence function review before classification. In 34 of the 67 cases, the intelligence functions assessment had found the concern operationally plausible. In 21 of the 34, the subsequent investigation had confirmed the glamour's presence. 21 confirmed glamour-related security concerns that had been addressed before they reached the particular operational scale of the coup. She was reviewing the office's second-year expansion planning in the institutional chamber when Soren came in. He sat at the working table with the quality of 2 years of mornings and said, "The Northern Territory identification cycle." She said, "Yes." She said, "The practitioner team returns in 3 days." She said, "The preliminary contacts have produced 4 potential identification cases." He said, 4. She said, "Yes." She said, The Northern Territory has historically had the highest glamour sensitivity delusion classification rate in the court's regional administrative records. She said, "The identification protocol's preliminary contact frequency is consistent with that historical pattern." He said, "For people who have been reporting accurate perceptions." She said, "Yes." He said, "And the 29 reclassifications." She said, "Yes." She said, 29 practitioners who received the formal notification. She said, "The notification's reception has varied. Some of the 29 were unsurprised. The specific quality of people who had always known their perception was accurate and who received the reclassification as the particular official acknowledgement of what they had already established privately." She said, "Some were profoundly affected." He said, "The ones who had been carrying the classification for a long time." She said, "Yes." She said, "The longest standing classification in the review's findings was 14 years. She said, 14 years of formal documentation that their perception was pathology." He said, "The notification." She said, "Yes." She said, "I conducted the notification meetings personally for the 14-year case." She said, "I said, this is what you have been seeing." She said, "The office exists so that what you see is received as intelligence." He said, "What did they say?" She said, "They said thank you." She said, "They said it in the particular way of someone who has been waiting a very long time for the accurate name for something." He said, "Yes." She looked at the office's institutional chamber, the specific space that had been built from the Cascade's aftermath, the particular institutional result of the active gift expression's most significant deployment. The chamber had the ambient quality of the passive level's continuous operation, the specific ordinary dual-layer reception of a veil sight practitioner's daily perceptual reality. She thought about the court chamber's eastern wall and the door that had been behind the concealment spell and the specific 14 minutes of the cascade that had dissolved 4 months of deception and liberated the king and revealed the advisors and made visible the document's concealed text. She thought, one active expression. She thought, 30 years of passive accumulation released in one cascade. She thought, and then 2 years of building the institution that meant the next practitioner did not spend 30 years being told they were imagining things before the specific context that required the cascade arrived. She thought, 19 practitioners who knew what they carried. 29 people reclassified. 21 confirmed security concerns addressed before they became coups. For pending in the Northern Territory. She thought, the clarity made this possible. Not just the cascade, the specific sustained work of building the institutional structures that meant clarity was received as intelligence rather than classified as delusion. The particular daily work of an office that started with one cascade and was now running a systematic identification program across every governance territory in the kingdom. She placed both palms flat on the working table and felt the particular ordinary quality of the present moment, the specific ambient perceptual reality of a veil sight practitioner in a room that had no active deceptions in it, seeing one layer and knowing the layer was real. She thought, yes. She thought, the clarity made all of this possible. She thought, and it was always real. It was always there. The classification did not make it less real. It simply made it less received. She thought, the office exists so that the receiving happens. She thought, yes. Her story has come to an end, but our journey together continues. If you found this story inspiring and meaningful, please like the video to support me. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next empowering stories. And if you have any thoughts about the characters, her journey, or want to share your own story, please comment below. I really look forward to reading and chatting with you.